most people, well, I guess most people do many other simpler things with cell phones these days. But I prefer to do the things that have always been done with sketchbooks and with stencils and whatnot, which is to write down musings, which is something I'd like to share for you. This is a method for fighting future wars. All battles are matters of principle. Struggle comes in its misunderstanding. So, a common thing to struggle with is like moving a very heavy object. So we can study this. We can study the concept of struggle by understanding friction. These are the forces that are implicit in friction, including what happens when a heavy object is being moved up an inclined plane. When there is severe friction, it means that two objects are rubbing on each other and producing static. So they cling to each other. This happens for three reasons. A concept carries a lot of weight. It is too rough or does not take the correct shape for applying to the situation. It needs to be smoothed out or made more even. In any case, you do something that does not fit into into whatever works best for the situation. The friction is incremental, usually due to dwindling resources. So problems aren't caused by people. They're caused. They are struggles. Thus, they cannot be destroyed by destroying the people. When an event happens, let's say dwindling resources, the people will react directly according to phenomena like this. So when they're exposed to certain phenomena that affect conscious thinking, this is the direct function of their conscious of that event would be how they come to think about any certain thing in the future. So principles are waves of information which are carried by light, right? So if you are given a problem in a dark room to solve versus you are given the same problem in a well-lit room to solve, obviously the person in a dark room will have a misunderstanding and have a much harder time dealing with the other problem and much harder time taking advice from other people in clearly seeing what the problem is. Physical destruction requires equipment, which is ironic, since waging war provides reason for defense, which requires equipment, which only provide more reason for which if it includes physical destruction. So instead, certain principles can be employed. Firstly, what is the reason for existing? Now, why would this be relevant at any time to a given situation? Ultimately, the universe was here before any other conscious being was here. It did not need a reason in order to exist. It simply exists. And while existence still exists, which is permanent, what is the best outcome that you can have for any instantaneous situation. Thus, how exactly does war become justice or provincial? Justice ultimately brings happiness to the future, right? Now, happiness has been given many definitions through history. Let us gain the physical electromechanical definition for happiness, which is the maximum gain you can get out of a system with the least amount of resistance. Okay? If that's the case, then when friction occurs, compared in relativity to a system where friction does not occur, the electrons are moving slower in response to friction, and if the particle moving at a velocity with no friction is passing that other system, those electrons are moving backwards. Therefore, destruction is an indicative. Any cause for destruction is indicative of a society moving backwards, like a coil unraveling itself, becoming loosened. And any sort of destruction is indicative of time moving backwards. When you build something, a complex structure, adding complexity to a structure, it increases the amount of time per that area of structure. Therefore, to create destruction is actually to unravel the structure, and it is part of a concept of trading space for time, where time flows backwards into something simpler, whereas a building or structure becomes unbuilt. And that stretch of time, or the amount of or that kind of space per area, loses that time. So that is a more relative idea of understanding time. So so this information travels by light. Therefore, if the concepts of war were carried as information, then you would still need a lot of heavy equipment, but the probability of it getting destroyed will fall dramatically over the course of its useful life. Therefore, it is a more permanent structure. Also, the wars would be fought by using happiness to build on previous concepts, and then to succinctly remove concepts that have not evolved according to the speed of that light. Whereas modern warfare causes destructive interference, this light wave communication will be constructive and will not cause destruction. It is light that brings the idea would be to bring sufficient happiness to the people, so as to not engender future wars. And this is how it is going to be done. When a sufficiently benevolent sample of material, a pure element, is exposed to an electromagnetic coil while being ionized, the light of which is shone through a laser aperture. across the sky, so that all who see it would be able to know what it is saying, will they be able to follow in their minds the light that is coming from it and be sensitive to it. And this goes this goes in contrast to a very specific ways of waging war with relatively limited range of long-range cannons that we use in war today. We have to do this over.